Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen, hosted by attorneys Sean Garner and Adam Hansen.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and the Law. We're talking about reporting requirements if you have a small business. And so it's called FINCEN. And first of all, it's a really difficult thing to do if you're a small business owner, or I would think invasive in your privacy, because you have to disclose your home address. They don't want entities. They don't want you to list that you own it in a trust. They want an individual. They want names. They want addresses. They want identification, front and back of driver's license or your passport, and those things have to be uploaded to this database. And we're scratching our heads here. A lot of us lawyers that attended this conference in Boston where they described this law in detail, we're just puzzled at how this could possibly become law. And Thomas, you got a timeline on that for us.
Yeah, so it was introduced in the House back in March of 2020, and it bounces in between the House and the Senate as they're, trying to make edits, and they're trying to do some horse trading to know whose special interest is going to go into the bill and whose is going to get cut. So they go through the year of 2020 doing that. It's presented to the president for signature on December 11th, 2020. He vetoes it. That's Donald Trump at the time. December 2023. Then the House overrides the veto with a 2/3 vote on the 28th of December. The Senate overrides the presidential veto by 2/3 vote on January 1st of 2021, and that's the day it becomes law for the whole country.
And so we've got this 1,000-plus page bill, and it's dealing with national defense, and we're on, it's going between the Christmas holiday and New Year's on a hotly debated election and in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and this is when this law gets passed. So that kind of is the undertone for when the law gets passed. We got a few clips to play about the mindset. I don't know, Adam, I want to play that clip about Biden's chief executive advisor or economic advisor. Do you mind if we play that one first?
Yeah, sure.
This is a clip from Dave Rubin. It's called the Rubin Report. And he pulled out this interview between Jared Bernstein and MSNBC. And there's questions about how the national debt works and how printing money works and how the whole monetary system works. And this is the person that is the chief economic advisor for the Biden administration. So he knows all the answers. So let's go ahead and play this clip.
Biden's chief economic advisor. His name is Jared Bernstein. And he's asked about how the government can't go bankrupt because they can print their own money. And just watch this. This is absolutely mind-blowing.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money. And it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do?
This is his chief economic advisor, and you can see the gears kind of spinning in his head, and there's a little bit of smoke that's starting to sputter out of his ears, and he's like, well, how does the government get money? We're not even talking about taxes at this point. We're talking about raising money above and beyond taxes. And yes, there are government bonds sold. This is clear to even somebody with a 5th grade education. Government bonds get sold when they need to raise additional money for a special project like wars. That's what a war bond is. And he's figuring this out as he's describing it. So
It's like real time. You know what's sad about this? Like, I was actually infuriated by this because I'm watching this. I'm waiting for my answer. You know, what's the answer here? Why are we printing money? And well, I don't want to ruin it for you, but it never comes. And then I'm like, who is this guy?
Well, and
surely he can't be like in the administration. He's just, this guy. I don't know who he is. So Jared Bernstein, okay, when I look him up on Wikipedia, the wonderful encyclopedia of all knowledge, Wikipedia says Jared Bernstein is an American musician, not an economist. He's an American musician who is the chair of the United States Council of Economic Advisors. He is a senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Actually, from 2009 and 2011, Bernstein was the chief economist and economic advisor to then Vice President Joe Biden in the Obama administration. So he's just coming up again. He was already with Biden in the Biden administration. Hey, you're not qualified. You got a music degree. Why don't you come and tell me about economics?
Yeah.
And that was during the Biden administration, the Obama administration. And now that Biden's back in, he just hires this guy as the head of the Economic Council of Economic Advisors. And so this is the guy that's supposed to be reading economic reports and then delivering them to the president and giving the president and his team ideas of what to do and how to do it and why things are happening. So anyway.
Yeah, let's play the tape. Now, mind you, we are not rewinding. We are continuing the interview. It sounds like we are rewinding because he keeps repeating himself, but this is a continuation of the same statement.
Mr. Bernstein, how does economics work? Right?
Here we go.
They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
I don't think I just oversold that clip. That is.
Is anybody else's mind blown here?
This is the guy. This is the guy that Biden has. I mean, we're not making this up. This is the guy. This is the guy. He comes in and says, hey, Mr. President, this is how economic affairs are going right now.
I have a theory. All right. So this is one less name Biden had to remember. So they just pulled him from the original cast.
Get
There
old
you go.
Bernstein, Bernie.
Yeah.
Get Bernie
Yeah.
back in here.
Yeah, because you're just going to call the new guy by Bernstein. Yeah. So just,
Make it easy.
yeah.
President, we don't want you to have too many names in your head.
So, Jean-Pierre, Karine Jean-Pierre, for, the White House press secretary.
Oh, yeah.
You watch her and you kind of swing back and forth in emotions between pity and disgust and just the utter incompetence that is displayed on a daily basis when she can't answer the simplest questions. And you think it can't get worse. And then you see this guy and you're like, well, I guess it can.
I mean, what did he think was going to happen? Like, this is a staged interview.
He knew the
what
question
did you think
beforehand.
was going to happen? Shouldn't you be prepped or something,
How
It's
does
like-
money work? Well, the government prints it.
We definitely
They
print
asked
it.
a musician that. Of all people.
I know, definitely. I mean, there is no question we print money.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein.
So, anyways,
At ease.
these are the type of people that are advising on
Oh my
the
gosh.
laws that are now in effect, that are going to affect you and I. Now, these laws, they're a bit more than suggestions. They've got some teeth to them. And so if you've got a company, an LLC, I don't care if it's filed 20 years ago and you're making $100 a year on this, then you are subject to this requirement. You must disclose the names of the individuals that have up to a 25% or more interest in the company or have substantial control. What does substantial control mean? I don't know, maybe a manager, maybe it's your wife that's doing the bookkeeping and saying, hey, I don't think we ought to work this week. We want to go on vacation this week. There, she's got substantial control. You've got to disclose her name and background. So these are things. Now, of course, we want to stop the money laundering. We want to stop the people from selling arms and drugs and obviously human trafficking. That's the type of money laundering that we want, the type of criminal activity that we want to stop, and what money laundering is all about. But there's exceptions to this law, and the exceptions are if your business is making more than $5 million a year, which typically these big organizations that are trading in arms and human trafficking and things like that, they're not doing it for chump change, right? They're generally these large organizations, but they're exempt. If you're a big company, if you make over $5 million a year, you don't have to report. Why would you not be subject to any money laundering requirement laws or any laws that disclose money laundering if you make a bunch of money? I don't get that. How is that? Yeah. How does that make any sense?
What I hear is like, okay, I got to ramp up my laundering here. We're not quite there. We're at 4 million this year, guys. We got to get it up to 5 so we don't have to report to the FinCEN. Oh, okay. Double time. Here we go. More money laundering. We got to really ramp it up.
Right.
Expand our business.
I see.
It's or you know what? Let's just go and get some more guys off the street. As long as we have 20 employees, then we're exempt.
That's another exemption. If you have more than 20 employees.
So what you're doing is you're incentivizing the crime
to expand.
We need to expand. We need to. The Sinaloa gang needs to get along with the Sonora gang, and we need to expand our business across the United States. Make more money and have more people.
Heaven forbid you be a landlord that simply doesn't want your address disclosed to the public because you don't want renters who are disgruntled coming and knocking on your door at midnight, or if you are, running a law firm and you represent. You defend criminals, and you want to not have your personal address out there on the database. You could be a prosecutor. You could be anything that is a legitimate business out there. Of course, prosecutors work for the state, so that wouldn't be a thing for a small business. But there's a lot of legitimate reasons out there that people don't want their personal address and their identification linked directly to it. That's the purpose of having a limited liability company. The company exists. You want to do business with my company? Great. You are limited to have access to the resources of this deal of what the company owns, not my personal resources. That's why I'm setting up this company. It's called limited liability because it limits my personal liability from the transaction. You got that? Great. That's why you have to disclose limited liability companies. You have to publish them when you first create them. But now they're saying, nope, you've got to disclose all your personal information.
To the federal government, yeah.
Now, we'll do a thought exercise because I think maybe some listeners might feel that, what's the big deal? Like, you guys should just be team players, and we don't like money laundering. We don't like, human trafficking. So let's just play along to get along, and that's a good thing. But I think what you need to consider is the ramifications that happen. So if you make an analogy to, let's say, the First Amendment, like you have the freedom to speak because we need to speak in order to convey ideas and get good ideas in the public square, right? But someone would say, well, those good ideas sometimes hurt people's feelings, and there's some bad things that come as a result of those things. But the argument is it's worth it. All of these bad things that people can say, it's worth having to tolerate those things in order to have free speech. And the same thing would happen for this. It's worth having the risk of money laundering and for the feds to have to do a little bit harder work in order to catch people, in order to have this freedom of economy so we can have a robust economy and have a strong country. That's all. That's what we're saying, is that no one's agreeing that money laundering is good and we should incentivize it. But the benefits that come from freedom to market are greater than the risks of money laundering.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good analogy. That brings it home. Thank you, Tom, for getting us back to where we needed to be.
You're welcome.
You're always good at that. We got to go to break. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
If you have questions or want to know more about something that was discussed today, please call the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen at 928-783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.